Okay, all right. Okay, so in this video, this is a custom video that I've been asked to do. It's for a group of students down in the ATL. They have an assignment to do to create an alarm clock. Normally, I wouldn't be creating an alarm clock because the one on my phone works just fine, but nonetheless, they're trying to learn how to code. So this video is to help them understand the JavaScript that goes into coding. Now, I started with a project that I was given, and it doesn't actually work. So as we go through this code, we're gonna make it work. So I didn't go through and try to fix anything yet, so we're doing this on the fly here. As you can see right now, it says it's 1802, and if I try to click on the little drop down to set an alarm, it doesn't go to 18, so that's a problem. And if I said 603, 603, and let's say 13 seconds, we'll catch it. Nothing. Didn't work. Okay, at least the clear button works. Alright. Okay, so let's go through it. But really, before we begin, whenever you're coding, one of the things you want to think about is what are all the things that you need to know in the app. Now, this is a relatively small app, so it shouldn't, be that difficult for you to really kind of keep it in your head, but nonetheless, it's a good rule of thumb. You probably want to write them down, especially when you're just starting. And if we start here, we can see one of the elements we have is the time. We have the current time, so I'm going to write that down, current time. And then not only do we have the current time is actually being displayed on the screen. Okay, so we have a display. Okay. And then we have to know what the alarm time is. Okay, so I'm going to write that down, alarm time. And then we have a bunch of user controls down here to actually set the alarm. Okay, so I'm just going to say alarm elements. I'm writing those down. Okay. And then we have a set button, which actually starts the timer. So that's a function, right? So that's going to do something. We click it, we want it to do something. And then we have a clear, which turns it off. Okay, and that just allows you to reset the numbers again, reset the alarm. Okay, so let's dive into the code, let's fix things, and let's figure out how in the hell this shit works. Alright, so the clock. Let's look at the clock code. And I'm going to probably fix the code because I've seen it before, and I personally didn't like it. But so we're going to try to simplify it here. So, alright, so I am in the code here, and I believe, it starts here on this line. And it starts out, oh, there's one thing I forgot. We need to actually, if the alarm goes off, doesn't make any sense if it's silent. Okay, so we need an actual sound file. Okay. So at the top, what is a good rule of thumb is to really set all of those things that you need to know. Okay, so that way when you're looking at it, it's kind of just a common place to put all of those variables that you need throughout your application at the very top of your program. So this is actually set to true. That's probably not a good idea. Okay, and I'll explain why later. But at any rate, you know what, let's just take it off. Alright, so the very first thing is I said we need to know the current time. Okay, and you can see there's a current time function down here, and it's not indented, so you can't really tell that actually it's all together. So what we're going to do is indent that, but I'm going to end up changing it anyway. So let's just write it up here. Okay, so we need to know the current time. Okay, and it doesn't need to be a function. it actually needs to be a string variable. Okay. So we're going to need to know the current time. Let's see, what else do we need to know? We need to know where we want to display it. So we're going to say, we're going to call this display time. Or not, the other way makes more sense. Let's call it time display. Okay. Alright, and let's see what else. We need to know the alarm time. Okay, it looks like it's probably already set here. And then we need to know the alarm elements, which is, okay, I won't actually set that because they kind of have their own. That could be local. It doesn't really need to. We don't really need a variable for that. Okay, and then we have a couple functions. We need a set function, a clear function, and our sound file, which is right after that. Okay, so that's good for variables. And that isn't the sound we want to use. There is actually an MP3, which I believe is here in the audio folder. Okay, so what I want to do is, when you type it in, you have to type in the path. That's what it's asking for. And because I'm here on the root and it's in a folder called audio, I have to tell it that's where it's at because it's not in that root directory. So audio, and then looks like Cardi B, money, that MP3. Okay. All right. Okay, so here we're starting here with our display. Now this says H2, but that's a very bad name, obviously, because if you look at it down in your code, you won't know what the hell H2 is. So let's change that to the display. Okay, so basically what this is doing is saying, go in your document, okay, find the HTML tag. That's what's an element. So all HTML elements is kind of the full name. If I hover over it, you'll see up in the right here it says HTML element. Okay, so everything is a element. All right, and then it says by ID. So if you tell it the ID, it'll go find it for you. All right, so it'll go through your code and it'll find it, and we called it clock. All right, so there it is. It'll go through and it'll find this for you. Okay, now all this does is it makes a reference. Okay, so it's kind of like a pointer. Like if you had a seat assignment in a movie theater, it's like, okay, you're sitting in row 5, seat 3. You're not literally sitting there, you just have a pointer of where to go when you want to sit there. Okay, so that's all it does. It says if you have anything you want to put there, here's the reference, here's kind of the map to get there. So that's all this does. Alright, so now let's continue on here. So the next item up for bid here, let's see, display current time by the second. Alright, so here's a function here that is linked to an interval. Okay, and it's very hard to read, but if you go down here at the bottom, you'll see this down here. So basically what it's saying is set interval is a function that just repeats. It's an asynchronous function, which means it'll just keep running and the rest of the code after will also keep running. So it's kind of like, hey, don't wait up for me, I'll just kind of do my own thing. That's what set interval does. And it says, okay, for every second, now these are in milliseconds, it's going to run whatever you put in here every single second. It'll just keep doing it and doing it and doing it until you turn the page off. Alright? So what's in here is not at all what we want to do. Okay? So we're going to change that. And so we're going to change that to, we're going to call it we're going to change the name. I'm going to call it the TikTok thingy. Okay? So basically, if you're an alarm clock, you have to every second. I mean, if you just think about it, if you were not a human, you were an alarm clock, and a human told you, "Hey, at 7 o'clock in the morning, wake me up." Okay, so you have to every second say, "Okay, is it time to wake them up yet? Is it time to wake them up yet? Is it time to wake them up yet?" So that's basically what this function should be doing. Is it time to basically sound the alarm? Okay, and again, that's every second, so that's a tick. On a watch, it goes tick tock, tick tock. So that's how we got it at every second. So it's a good name for this tick tock thing. Now, every time it ticks, we want to do something, right? We want to do something. We're going to end up deleting this. Actually, we're going to move this code. So the first thing we want to do is we need to know what actual time it is. Okay, we need to. So we're going to get that. We'll call it. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Get the current time. So we need to know the current time. Okay. Then we need to know, is an alarm actually set? Okay. There may not even be an alarm set, and we don't have to do anything. So that tells me something. So there's something else I'd have to store in my brain. Okay. So in order to do that, I need another variable. Okay. So let's make another one up here. We'll call it is alarm set. Okay. And actually, we'll default that. Okay, we'll default it to false. When you first start the program, there is no alarm set. Okay. Another thing, when you're naming your variables, if you name them so they make sense, then later on, when you start programming, the rest of it will make sense. When you use name like hours or names that just don't match what you're doing, you're going to get confused, especially when you're new. Okay. All right. So is alarm set? Okay. So this is a true false statement. Is alarm set? So that variable, I set it to false, and if I hover over it, you can see it's a Boolean, which means it's going to be true false. So we'll test for that, and then if it's true, then we'll test to see if it's an alarm. Okay. If it's not true, and it really doesn't matter, we still need to let the user know what the time it is. Okay. So we're going to let the user know what time it is. Okay. And basically that's it. I mean, it's really that simple. Get the current time. Is an alarm set? Okay. Well, I'll throw it in there. If it is set, and we'll check to see if it is time to wake up. All right. Okay. And really, that's gonna be it. Okay. Okay. All right. So the first thing, we'll go back here, and then we need to actually get the current time. So we'll say current time equals, and we'll actually make it a function to get the current time for us. So we'll say get current time. All right. Now that doesn't exist yet. Okay. So let's go create it. Let's copy this, and then let's see where we're gonna put it. Let's just put it. We'll put it before. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so we'll have this function here called, and you guys, I believe, are doing arrow function. So we'll make it an arrow function. Okay. All right. So there we go. We got this current time function here, and we're going to need to make sure that it returns a value. So at the very end, it has to have a return statement, because we're expecting to put something in here. Okay. So we could actually copy this code here. So we'll start out with, yes, we do need a date. Okay, the date object actually has the date and the current time. It pulls it actually from your browser, so it should be local time. So this is JavaScript that all runs in your browser. Okay, and then from that we can get the hours. Okay, I'm not sure why all those extra parentheses are there. Let's take those out. Okay, so it makes sense. So from the date, okay, you can get the hours. Okay, so it'll take the current hours. So see, gets the hours and a date. Okay, using your local time. All right, and then we'll take. Let's go ahead and take the minutes and the seconds together, and then I'll reformat it there. Okay. Okay, so that's going to give us the hours, minutes, seconds. Okay, and we don't really care about the actual day, right? Because I assume you know what day it is. Okay, and here's an AM or a PM, since we are in the U.S. Okay, I'll put this up here and then I'll explain it. Okay. All right. So with the AM or PM, basically you have a statement here. This is called a ternary operator. Okay. So this question mark and this colon go together. They're an operator. They're like a plus sign or an equal sign or wherever. It just so happens that there's two of them, and they work just like a regular if statement. You can't get too complex because you can only have one condition, whereas with the if statement you can say, is it this or is it that or is it blah blah blah. Like with this, you just want to keep it simple. Okay, and the reason why people do this versus an actual if statement, number one, it looks cooler because you only write one line of code. That's mainly. And then number two, back in the day, you really wanted to conserve CPU cycles, and this particular statement does reserve or uses less CPU cycles. But in today's world, computers move so fast, I mean, it doesn't really matter. But nonetheless, let's explain it. Okay, so again, you have basically a condition. Okay, and then once you have a condition, you give it a question mark. Okay, so it basically says, is that condition true or false? Okay, so immediately after that thought process, it says, okay, if it's true, do this. However, if you're false, do this. Okay, and you can substitute whatever you want it to do when it's true or when it's false. You can set that here. Now, it does return a value, so you need to make sure that these are strings or booleans or whatever you want this value to be. Okay. And when you learn down the road, you can even return objects too. But for the sake of simplicity here, it's saying get the hours. Okay. Again with the weird parentheses. Bam. All right. So if the hours is greater than 12. Okay, then if it's true, return whatever value I put after the question mark. If that's false, it'll put the other value. Okay, so you can see here, if it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and military time, or I guess world standard time is just non-US time, then it'll be 13. Okay, so 13 would end up giving you a PM. Okay, noon would give you a PM. Okay, and it's now 6 o'clock, so that's an 18, so that would give you a PM. So that's how you know AM or PM from the actual hours that we're on. All right, so now let's go down here. Now this is already done for us, so the current time and what's displayed, if we go back over here, okay, you can see it displayed nicely formatted for us. We got hours, colon, minutes, colon, seconds, colon, and then AM, PM. So that's just a concatenation and displayed on the screen. So let's see how that's done. Let's go back to VS Code here. All right. Okay, so this operation down here is actually the one that's doing it. So let's take that and move it up to our function here. Okay. Now, we got rid of H2, okay, because we didn't like the name, and really we don't need that anyways, okay. So this is our current time right here. So this is it nicely formatted, okay. So this add zero function, basically when you're dealing with a clock, you know, you always have to have 2 digits. So this is gonna like pad it for you. So if you have, and let's take a look at that function. So again with the indentation. Okay, so if you pass it a number, time is probably a bad. So this is what happens when you make bad parameter names. You get confused, like, oh, I passed it the whole time. Like, that doesn't quite make sense. Well, it's not actually the whole time. You're just passing it, you know, really a set of digits. So let's change the name there. Okay. Oh gosh. Okay. So, and let's change that. So you're passing this set of digits, and then all the digits have to return 2 places. Okay, so here, like if it was like say 0 0, that would just end up being 0, which is weird, right? Like we always see at least 2 spaces for no matter what. If it's 1 o'clock, it's 0 1, you know, 24 14, or if it's 1804, right? We always have that 0. So you always want to make sure that you add your zeros. Okay, and that's all it does. It's just adding a 0 to the end of the digits. Okay. All right. So we take the hours, pad it with zeros. Take the minutes, pad it with zeros. Take the seconds, pad it with zeros, and then we'll append our AM PM. Not quite sure why this is here, unless we want to put a space in there, but I don't believe we do. So let's just take that out. That didn't quite make sense. Okay. Okay. All right. So this is what we want to return. Okay. So like I said, this is a function, right? So this is a function that has to return a value. We're asking it to return something. And then once it runs all this code and it's compiled everything, it'll return it. And then it'll take this return and it'll throw it here in current time. Okay. So now we have current time. Great. So now we have to say, okay, if is alarm set. Okay. Now it's already a Boolean, so we don't need an equal sign to true. We don't need to do that. Okay. Okay. So if it is true, okay, which would be this statement here. Okay. We'll need to check to see if it's time to wake up, right? Okay. And you can see once we get here, we're kind of missing something. Okay. But we'll set that later. Okay. So we'll say if the current time is equal, and it's 2 equal signs. Okay. If you do 1 sign, it's an assignment. It basically means take the value on the right and give it to the one on the left. Okay. 2 equal signs is a comparison. It's like an if statement, like are they equal? Yes or no, true or false. Okay. So we got alarm time. Okay, so is the current time equal to the alarm time? Okay. And if it is, wake up. Okay, clock's going off. It's time to wake up. All right. So, what do we want to do when they wake up? Okay. Now, ordinarily, we would probably want to make another function here, but I'll just go ahead and put all the code here of what you would need to do. Like normally, we would have a function called wake up, okay, and then you would define what to do when you wanted to wake up, or alarm going off, whatever you want to call it. All right, but we'll just put it here for now. We won't get that fancy. All right, so we want to play the sound. That's number one, right? So we had this sound dot play. Okay. All right, so we're gonna play the sound. Okay, I believe that's what we tried to do down here, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, by the way, all that's going to go to. Alright, so if the alarm is set and the current time is equal to the alarm time, it's going to play the sound. Okay. Now, if you want to loop it, okay, actually I don't quite like that idea. We should probably tell it, and this is why you should have another function, because you could tell it, okay, I want you to loop 8 times or 9 times, so you don't loop indefinitely, but whatever. Okay. All right, so we're going to tell it to loop. Okay. All right. So if the alarm is set and it's the current time, play the loop. Okay. And you can see this code is starting to get a lot cleaner, because that's all we really need to do, right? And then at the end of this, okay, and ongoing, whether the stuff is true or not, we got to let the user know what time it is, so they can kind of see what's going on here. So we want to go to our variable that we create at the top. We'll call it time display. Okay. And the time display, actually, no, it's not, doesn't have a value, because, and the reason why it doesn't have a value, because it's just an H2 tag. Okay. So an H2 tag only has this, whatever's in the middle here. Okay, you can reference what's in the middle of the H2 tag. You can use inner HTML, or you can use text content. Okay, we're choosing to use text content. Okay, and we'll say the text content equals the current time. Okay, so we're telling our display, okay, actually the text context of our display, so that means the inside of this entire H2 tag, inside of here is text context. Okay, inside of there, right in there, text context. Alright, we tell them to display on the screen to do this. Okay, and that should happen regardless of time, alarm, or whatever the case may be. Okay. Alright. Okay, so one thing we did not do, actually, I did not convert this out of military time. Okay, so what we're going to do is convert that out of military time. Okay, so here is the old way of doing it. We're going to use another ternary operator to do it up here. Okay, so we'll just use the same name here. So now that we already got AM and PM for hours, so we don't really care anymore about destroying its value. So we'll just say now hours. Okay. Really, we can kind of copy the same thing, really, because it's kind of the same if statement. Okay. All right. So if it's greater than 12, okay, or if it's less than 12, we don't really want to do anything, right? Okay. And if it's greater than, okay, which should be, if it's false, we want to, I feel I'm doing this backwards. Okay, we want to subtract 12, actually. Yeah. Minus 12. Whoa. Okay. Actually, I think we really want to do if it's less than 13. Because once it's 13, then we really want to subtract 12. Okay. There we go. So this is a little different. Because we're not really starting at 0. Okay. Okay, let me think about that for a second. It doesn't seem like it might work. Alright, so if it's 0, which it could be 0, then we want to subtract 12 if it's 13. So if it's noon, so actually, yeah, let's just do that. So we actually want to do hours plus 1 and then subtract 11, because it's actually going to be off by some. No, I'm tripping. Alright, whatever. Okay, that should actually work. This should work. Alright. Okay. And the only thing, now I'm sorry. Here we go. So if it's actually midnight, then it's going to be 12. So that would be the oddball, because if it is actually midnight, if it's 0, then it needs to be 12. So we're basically saying, we'll just do it again. You know, if hours equal 0, okay, then we'll return 12. Okay, else we'll just give it its hours back. So we had to do it twice. Okay, now we could have snuck it in here and put another operator in here, but let's just do it this way. That's what kind of threw me off, because I knew midnight was going to cause us a little issue. All right. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. And I'm not editing this video, so y'all have to deal with that bullshit right there. Alright. Alright, so let's get rid of this. We don't need this anymore. Okay. And let's see. Let's actually indent the whole thing so that it's not stuck on the edge there. Okay, so now we got a little TikTok thingy. Okay. And it's just going to loop through every second, get the current time. Is there an alarm set? If it is, find out if it's time to wake up and play a sound. Okay? That's all it needs to do. Alright, so we've talked about this function. Okay, alright, hours menu. Now this, it's just some population stuff. Okay. This could be redone a lot better, but I guess we'll just leave it. Yeah, this is just so weird. Like, this is a lot of code for no reason. Okay. Alright, so basically it's just writing the function and then calling it. So you got a function and call it versus just put all these together and just run it one time, or make it dynamic so you don't have to write this function, because they do basically the same thing. Okay, so it's just looping through. So let's take hours. So basically hours, it's going to go find the alarm hours element, okay, just like we did our display thing. So a better name would be alarm hours drop down. Okay, and then it says, okay, well, how many hours, or really how many items do you want to add? Okay, and it's going to start at 1 and it's going to go to it reaches 12. So it's all it's going to do is just create a drop down of 1 through 12. Okay, so it started at 1 and it went to 12, and that's all it did. Just created these options here. Okay, and it's going to do the same things for seconds. Oh, come on, go back. Going to do the same thing for seconds and minutes. Okay. All right. Now we get to alarm set. So this is the function that gets fired once you click on that little green button that says set alarm. So I click that, and you gotta trust me on the HTML there that it is linked. Okay, and it's linked here, and it's gonna fire this. So what it's doing here is pulling out all the elements that it needs. It needs to know what hour, minutes, seconds that you pulled, and it's AM or PM. Okay. All right, so all this does, again, it's just a placeholder, right? So it's just saying, kind of like, again, at the movies, it's like, oh, alarms is sitting, or I'm sorry, hours is sitting there, minutes is sitting in this seat, seconds is sitting in this seat, and AM, PM sitting in this seat. We don't really know who, we just know what seat it is. Okay, so the next set of lines here actually goes and finds out who. So it's saying, okay, go into that entire drop down box, okay, and each one of these are drop down box, and all drop down boxes have a list of options, which are basically held in memory as an array. Okay, you see it on the screen as just a drop down, but behind the scenes it's actually an array. Okay, and then it's saying, okay, whichever one that you selected, the selected one, okay, and it returns a selected index. Okay, and then it'll give you the value. Now, honestly, you didn't have to do it this way. You could have just said hr.value, but whatever, okay, because it does return whatever is selected is actually the value of the select, but it's a long way around. Okay, and it does the same thing for minutes, seconds, and then also AM, PM. All right, so now that we got each one of these, now these aren't references, these are the actual values. Okay, so it's not like up here where if we change the value, we can actually change the value because we have a reference to it. Here we just got the actual value pulled into a variable. Okay, so now what it's going to do is actually build a string for alarm time that looks exactly like the current time. So it just takes the hours and it pads it with a 0, okay, the minutes, the seconds, and the others, okay, and with AM and PM. So same format, so they should look alike if they are alike. Okay, now we can also then disable all of those alarm elements, because we don't want the user making a change now, because that's what we already set. So we set this alarm time, so it's set in stone until we say otherwise. Okay, and I can see we're just console logging out the time here. Okay, Okay, so then we're going down here, and for some reason we're grabbing the H2 element, which we really don't need to do anymore because we have current time, so we don't need to grab H2, and H2 doesn't exist anymore. Okay, and then also down here in the old code, it was basically starting yet another kind of tick-tock thing where every second it was trying to do something. So it's basically rebuilding the current time, trying to then convert it to military time, blah blah blah. But that isn't necessary at all because we can do it all in one step. So none of this is actually needed. Okay. So there we go. Okay. We are missing one step. Okay. So we got everything disabled. Now, if you remember back up at the top here, we said we have a Boolean flag, okay, that we can let our program know. Oh, I went too far. Okay. To let our program know that an alarm is actually set. Okay. So, and then we set it to false. So, if you're thinking logically, if someone sets an alarm, we probably want to set that flag, and we're going to make some indentions here. Okay, so we probably at the end of this, we want to say is alarm set is now equal to true. We're locked and loaded. It's ready to go. That alarm is set. Okay. Okay, and down here at the bottom, if someone clears it, okay, it basically turns everything else to false, and then it stops the sound. Okay, so that's how you turn the sound off. Okay, and again, you probably don't want to loop it forever. That was a bad idea. Okay, and if someone clears it, again, we got our is alarm set equal to false. Okay, now why is this important again? Okay, why do we have to tell it if an alarm is set or not? Because if you remember our little tick-tocky thing, okay, the tick-tocky thing is the only thing that's looping. Okay, so this little piece of code here is firing every single second for the life of our program. Okay, and every single second it's going to get the current time, and then here's the important step: check to see if an alarm is set. And if an alarm is set, it's going to say, okay, is that time equal to my alarm time? If so, sound the alarms. Okay, and it'll just start playing. Okay, and then it'll let the user know what time it is. Okay, and that's outside of that loop, so it's going to run every single time. All right, let's clean up some of these extra spaces we got going on here. Okay. Okay, so that's really it. Now, I haven't saved any of this, so let's see what happens. Let's see if I broke it. Alright, so I'm going to hit save, and then I'm going to hit refresh, and let's see what happens. If I broke it, then we'll get to debug it. Alright, well, at least that worked. We got, it's 6:45 and 31 seconds, so let's try to catch this thing at 6. I think we'll catch it 6:45 and oh no, I'm not gonna miss it. I miss it. 53 seconds set. Oh shit, it didn't work. Okay, I don't know if I missed it or it just didn't work. Alright, hold on. Let's see. It didn't work. Let's see what I did. Let's go back. Alright, so let's see. It's pretty simple, so I'm not sure why it wouldn't have worked. Okay, let's get rid of these smaller functions here. Those are tiny. Okay, so know what? Let's do it. I think maybe it just didn't play my sound. Okay, so let's figure out something else to say that the alarm is going other than the sound, because we may have to troubleshoot the sound. So let's see here. Where can we put something else here? We're just gonna log it to the console. How about that? Alright, we'll just log it to the console. Won't be fancy. Okay, alright, so now that says wake up. Alright, let's try this thing again. Let's hit refresh it. Okay, and the other thing is, probably should set this when a person logs on. Say that, yeah, but whatever. Okay, so we're at 48. And 24. We'll say 39. And I missed it. Son of a bitch. Okay, we'll save 49. Alright, well, looks like we're gonna wait a little bit. It's gonna be a long ass video. Okay, getting there. And it did not work. Okay, so the problem could be alarm time. Alright, so let's go check alarm time real quick, because I commented that out, so I didn't console log back to the screen. So let's just see what the hell is it actually logging there when we set it. Alright, so let's set it, clear it, set it the same thing. Shit, it didn't even do that. It didn't even run my function. That's a problem. Okay, well, let me check the HTML. I thought that part was working. Alright, let's see. Alarm set. Alarm set. Okay, that'll make no kind of sense. Oh, now it works. That's weird. I just refreshed. Oh yeah, I probably didn't refresh last time. Alright, whatever. Alright, 6:52. Okay. Now, let's see, 6:52. And we know we're getting the current time correct because it's being displayed on the screen. Okay. So that's not it. So we know we're getting the right time. So the only other thing would be what our variables are saying. So let's see if we're making it this far. See if it at least knows that an alarm is, if an alarm is set. We'll console log that. An alarm is set. Alright, let's go back over here. Let's do a little refresh. An alarm is set, so that part it does know. Okay. However, it only did it one time. That's weird. Yeah, I should do it several times. You know what? Let's not run it here. Let's run it in Firefox. We may have an issue here. Yep, and it doesn't look that great over here. Oh my goodness. Whatever. Six. I'll do 50, 55 p.m. Let's inspect here. Okay, it's working in Chrome. You can see it's telling me an alarm is set, alarm is set, alarm is set. But that's what it's supposed to do. Okay, let's see what happens. So something's out with Firefox. And I hear Cardi B. I got a headset on, so you can't hear it. Okay, so if I hit clear now, it should stop. And you should see this should stop. An alarm is not set. It just stays at 48. And the time is still changing. Okay. Alright, so that was the issue. It was Firefox. I'm not going to sit and try to figure out how to jerry-rig this thing to get Firefox to work, but it works in Chrome, and everybody uses Chrome, so that's good enough. Alright, hopefully this video was useful to you. Obviously it took me a long time to make this, so I would appreciate it if you just like and subscribe to my channel. I probably only got 1 subscriber right now, so help me out, help me get that to like 4 or 5. I appreciate it. Peace.